somewhere between the shadows of history and the silence of institutions. There exists a set of papers that has become one of the greatest points of tension among governments, ufologists, and skeptics. These papers emerged without warning, contradict the official version about UFOs, and suggest something so profound it could rewrite the very history of humanity. When the Majestic 12 documents first appeared, the world had no idea how to interpret them. But today, decades later, one question still forcefully persists. What if what we call human progress is not happening on its own, but is driven by something external, silent, and strategically kept away from public view? The documents present dates, names, military operations, and intelligence details. They describe secret meetings involving high-ranking figures and reveal the existence of a closed group supposedly created to analyze recovered craft and bodies of non-human beings. If all of this is false, it is perhaps the most complex and audacious forgery ever produced. If it is true, then we are facing the most direct evidence that humanity has already had official contact with visitors from other worlds. Before attempting to answer what is real and what is fiction, we need to understand the context in which these documents emerged and why they became so dangerous. In the mid-20th century, the United States Air Force faced an avalanche of reports of flying objects that defied any conventional explanation. Aviators described lights impossible to track. Farmers reported mysterious crashes, and civilians in different parts of the country told stories too similar to be a coincidence. While the press dismissed everything as public hysteria, internal government sectors began to suspect there was something more, an unknown risk to national security that required silent and immediate investigation. It was in this scenario of tension that the supposed Majestic 12 was allegedly born. According to the documents, this group would have been formed by direct order of President Harry Truman in 1947, the year of the Roswell incident. The objective would be simple to explain and extremely difficult to execute. Gather the brightest minds in science and the most influential officers in the military apparatus to analyze the wreckage of a non-human craft and determine if those visitors posed a threat. The problem is that no official agency recognizes the existence of MJ-12. There is no decree, no public report, no confirmation. But there are papers, many papers, and they tell a fascinating story. According to the documents, a craft allegedly crashed in Roswell, and a large part of its technology was taken to highly restricted military facilities. The narrative describes the recovery of materials that seemed to defy the known laws of physics at the time. Metallic alloys whose composition did not correspond to anything produced on Earth. Internal structures without any rivets or welds, suggesting a type of construction that would still perplex us today. One of the passages also mentions non-human entities found near the craft, described as small, with fixed eyes, and without obvious signs of physical damage. If this is real, we are not just looking at an accidental crash but direct evidence of contact. Some say that this entire story is nothing more than fiction produced by the Cold War, a way to confuse adversaries, or to cover up experimental technologies. The skeptical explanation is always simple. Military forces test secret aircraft. Someone sees, someone records, someone exaggerates. However, the content of the Majestic 12 documents goes far beyond internal testing. It describes strategy, reverse engineering, and ethical debates involving the possible presence of intelligences more advanced than ours. When analyzing these documents, we notice something curious. They do not try to impress. They do not use fanciful language or a dramatic tone. They are bureaucratic, dry, direct. They seem to have been written not to cause public impact, but to inform internal agents. This characteristic increases the sense of authenticity because forgeries tend to exaggerate, create symbols, or catchy phrases. Not here, just instructions, dates, and names. Real names of scientists and officials who existed and held important functions during that period. This raises a legitimate question. Who would fabricate such a detailed forgery if the general public would have no way to verify the names or positions cited? Another element often impresses researchers: the coherence between different sections. Even when analyzed separately, the documents present the same style and the same writing structures. This might indicate internal consistency typical of a real group, or it might just indicate a well-made forgery. However, there is one point that is rarely discussed: several technologies that emerged in the following decades align in a strangely convenient way with ideas mentioned in these papers. Extremely light and resistant composite materials, integrated circuits that emerged almost abruptly in the industry, and experimental propulsion methods that only became a research topic after the supposed reports. Coincidence or consequence? Some former military personnel have stated over the years that projects related to the study of UFOs genuinely existed, and that the government had departments dedicated to the investigation of unknown objects. Not all mention MJ-12 directly. but many point to a hidden structure that would have operated parallel to conventional operations. This does not prove the authenticity of the documents, but opens the door to consider that a part of them may have been based on real programs, even if modified by someone with internal information. The turning point usually appears when we analyze the supposed memorandum from President Eisenhower included in the papers. It describes operations related to the recovery of accidents involving non-human technology and instructs MJ-12 to analyze all material with extreme secrecy. Critics say the signature is a forgery. Handwriting experts claim it is authentic. Others say the composition of the paper does not correspond to the period, but later analyses indicate that the fiber is indeed compatible. With every argument, another of similar strength appears. With every attempt to discredit, a detail emerges that keeps the mystery alive. If these documents are true, then humanity has had access to alien technology since the 1940s. This suggests that scientific advancements were not just the result of our creativity, but a direct consequence of reverse engineering carried out in secret facilities. If they are false, it means someone had access to real military information, sophisticated enough to produce a documentary set that deceived specialists for over half a century. In both cases, the narrative changes, because in both cases, there is something we are not being told. The true impact of these documents, however, is not only in their content but in what they symbolize. They question the idea that we are in total control of our technological destiny. They question the assumption that we are the most advanced species within our cosmic reach. They question the notion that human history is completely human. Because if an advanced civilization has already visited Earth and their technologies were studied by Majestic 12 scientists, then perhaps every advancement we celebrate as our own achievement is just the distant echo of much older and much broader knowledge. By considering this possibility, we enter delicate territory, the territory of political fear and strategic power. Imagine a country gaining exclusive access to technology capable of changing the course of war, transportation, and communications. Imagine how this would shift the global balance. Imagine the moral weight of deciding what the public should know or ignore. Even if everything is true, openly revealing such a discovery could generate international panic, social instability, and a profound religious impact. Perhaps this was the main reason for burying them under layers of secrecy. However, there is another argument, a more subtle one, an argument that some former agents have suggested over the years. It might not be the public that isn't ready. It might be the governments. Because the presence of more advanced intelligences does not fit well into political structures based on control, hierarchy, and predictability. Advanced civilizations do not ask for permission. They do not recognize national borders. They do not respect military agendas. If they are nearby, everything changes, and power changes with it. The supposed recovery of alien technology reported in the documents also brings an almost uncomfortable ethical question. The right to study something that does not belong to our planet, the risk of misinterpreting mechanisms that were not made for human hands, and the possibility that our attempts to replicate such systems could put us in danger without us even realizing it. Many researchers warn that any reverse engineering of such superior technology could generate unpredictable side effects. Some even believe that certain experiments involving exotic propulsion systems resulted in accidents that were never disclosed. But amidst all these speculations, a central point remains. The documents exist. They have not disappeared. They have not been nullified. They have not been replaced by official versions. They remain there, challenging specialists and provoking questions that are too unsettling to be ignored. Because, if none of this were relevant, why have so many governmental agencies dedicated so much effort to denying them? Why has the subject never been allowed to die? Why does every new mention reignite the discussion with force? The Majestic 12 case has become an uncomfortable mirror. It reveals not only what might be out there, but what exists in here. Our tendency to hide what we do not understand, our need to control the unknown, our difficulty in accepting that perhaps we are not the sole architects of our destiny. Whatever the reality, one thing is certain. Humanity is going through a moment like never before. Governments are admitting that unknown objects genuinely exist, and that their behavior defies conventional explanations. Official documents are slowly being released. Military pilots are openly reporting encounters. What was once treated as fantasy is now being discussed in governmental hearings. Something is changing, and the Majestic 12 documents may have been the first sign of this transformation. Now the decision is yours. Do you believe these papers represent the greatest revelation in modern history, or do you believe they are just an ingenious construct, created to manipulate perceptions and hide terrestrial secret programs? Regardless of the answer, the fact is that they continue to shape debates, spark curiosity, and provoke reflections about who we are and with whom we share the cosmos. If you think this story needs to be explored even further, leave your opinion in the comments and share your theories about MJ. And if you want to continue this journey into the unknown, click on the next video and dive with me into another mystery that might change everything we think we know about the extraterrestrial presence on Earth.